Welcome everyone to our class in Sefer Higayon. We're proceeding very deeply into the third part of this beautiful Sefer, where he's going to bring all the things we learned together. So we're going to have to also spend time reviewing what we did. But as it says in Dr. Gemara, the first thing we have to do is row. First you have to go through the text in general. We have to hear the concepts, and then we have to master them. And finally, Be'ezer Hashem, we have to apply them. But the Ramchal, the more I understand what he did, the greater I see his chiddush. First of all, I mean, it's maybe obvious to say, but he's a man of truth. He set out in the beginning of the book to tell us that he was going to create a system to check out the thinking process to make sure that what you're saying makes sense, logical sense. And that's what he has done. That's what he's accomplished. He's taking us from the first part of the book, which is the groundwork of thinking, which is concepts, into the middle of the book, where concepts are added to other concepts in the terms of statements and hekashim. And now we're in the third part of the book, which is the application of the system in the real world. Now, after we do all this, and we talk about it, because there's a lot to talk about, in the end of the book he has what's called kanaf hekashim, where he goes through all the terms that he spoke about in the middle of the book, and he shows you how to create ideas and how to analyze ideas on the basis of those 21 terms. So we have a lot to look forward to. Right now we're in the third part of the Sefer, and we're understanding Seder. Seder is the way that you have to approach the learning process and also the teaching process. So in the two large boxes, he has Klali and Prati. Let's just look over here and try to get a little bit of what's going on. Okay. He has what he calls the Seder Klali and the Seder Prati. Klali is when you're trying to present information, like the Rambam tries to present all Torah Shabbat Peh, how you're supposed to organize the material, from making sure that your information goes from things which are have to be known before the things that have to be known after. Like he says in grammar, you have to learn the letters before you learn the words, from more known things to the less known things, from the generals to particulars, and from the simple to the complex. Okay, that's the basic format that you have to present your information. That makes a chiluk between things which are sichli and masi, things which are intellectual studies completely, and where you're trying to learn a topic, like say you're trying to learn biology, as opposed to when you're trying to do something like heal somebody in medicine. So he says there's a different approach when you're presenting the material. When it's something that's a subject which is totally abstract, so you should talk about the subject and all the things that are involved in that subject. Whereas when you're talking about an activity, always tell the person first the goal and then the means. So if you read now in Mesil Shasham, in light of the Sefer, which again he used to create all his books, you'll see Mesil Shasham always starts over with the tachlis. What's the tachlis in the world? And then once you understand your tachlis, your goal, then he's going to tell you what the means are, the mitzvahs. So that's called ma'asi. Now he's going to talk about individual concepts or ideas, and there's going to be two basic modes here. One is called hamsa'ah, and the other one is called havchana. We're either going to try to create new ideas, think about things, and create new understandings by asking these series of questions of the different havchanot, as we'll explain later, or we have a statement and we want to now analyze it, to break it down. So we're either going to create new ideas, or we're going to do in the tuach, we're going to analyze new ideas. Those are the two basic boxes that he's going to talk about. Okay, so let's go to the Sefer itself. There's a lot of the chart in some ways easier. I have to spend much more time on that chart to even make it clearer. But in the Sefer, you'll see with my indenting, you get more and more indents to the left because he has a lot of subcategories. But anyway, here's the two basic things we spoke about when you're presenting information and when you're investigating specific ideas. Okay, so I'm going to shut this just to save the memory. Okay, a little older machine here. Okay, good. This is what we just discussed about Mayan Sichli and how Maisi always have to talk about the goal first and then the means. Okay. And then we talked about Hamsoa creating new ideas, new statements, and new Hakashim. And he's going to go and explain that a lot more in this Kanaf. So let's go through the Sefer first. This is where we stopped off. Now we're going to talk about, today we're going to talk about Havchana. Havchana means analysis. You have a statement and you want to analyze that statement, break it to its parts, and then see whether it's true or not. It's called analysis. So he says like this. There's Havchanat HaGezeros and Havchanat HaHekeshim. That's why, again, I tried to color code it. Maybe it'd be easier for us. But there's analyzation of statements, and later on he's going to talk about the analyzation of Hekeshim. Okay, so where is that? My sense vikuach. Yeah. Okay, so we'll go through it and we'll get to it there. Let's go slowly. Analyzation of gezeres, of statements. What's the purpose? Lamita or lahachisha. In our analysis, our goal, which is the whole goal of Higayon, he explains to us, is to find whether something is true or not. So when we do an analysis of a statement, so we want to see if it's true, to accept it or to deny it. So that's done in two ways. He says, O alidei atzma, o bivikuchim. You either do it as an individual, or you do it in a group through a debate. Let's see how he spells that out. Ifnei atzmahu, nivchan hagezera echas levadenu li mitnaged. It's a analysis of a statement without anyone attacking or defending the other statement one way or the other. It's not a debate like you'll have in the Gemara. It's just that you yourself, you have a statement, you yourself want to analyze it, but you're not fighting anybody. So he says like this, it's the dissection of a statement without a misnagda, without anyone opposing it. Ad yedei havchanos ha'naosos, according to the proper distinctions. Let him spell it out, because this is really the foundation of this whole system over here. Perisho, he says like this, Ad yedei havchanos ha'chaf aleph, those 21 terms that we learned, shezachanu l'mala, above, shemisham notzi kol hekeshim. He says that all the hekeshim that are created in the thinking process are can be abstracted to one of those 21 terms. V'hine keshetirtza livchon gezer echas, When you want to now do a test about a statement, titzarech lahabit techila l'shnei chalakim. So now this is how you do a proper analysis. You have a statement in front of you, Kol Yisrael, Yeshem Kelach Olam Haba. The first thing you have to do is titzarech lahabit techila l'shnei chalakim dahainu hanose v'hanasu. The first thing you always have to do is strip the statement down to its real subject and real predicate. Okay. Ulahasir mehem kol sfeikus hashituf. Very important. You have to get, you have to clear the statement from any questionable parts of the statement or how do you say shituf? Ambivalent and, yeah, ambivalent maybe is the word.
Ambiguous?
In other words, if, what?
Ambiguous?
No, ambiguous should be sfeikus, but ambivalent. Ambivalent.
Ambivalent.
Yeah. In other words, that it can have a double meaning. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. So when it says that,
It is like a homonym.
A homonym, exactly. Exactly. Ad sheyivadu lecha al amitam. So then, when you do that, then you'll be able to find out the truth. If you notice in Gemaras, usually in the beginning there's a clarification of terms, because you can't go any further in an analysis until you know what you're talking about. In the Gemara of Aravas and Zekin, right? Shorba Mava and Hever. If you don't know if Mava is Adam, or you don't know Mava is Shane, so then you can't go any further. You can't ask why, what, and when. If you know what Mava is and you don't define it, then you can't go any further in the discussion. So the first thing is to understand clearly what you're talking about and what you're saying about it. Okay? Many times in discussions, the problem is that people are talking at each other and not with each other because they're talking about two separate worlds and they have two different concepts going on. So a lot of the job of proper understanding and proper communication is defining clearly what you're talking about and what are you saying about it. And that is not as simple as it appears because language unfortunately has a lot of flexibility. The words that are being used have a lot of flexibility. So you have to make sure you're down to the root. That's why this book also, many people, I don't know, I shouldn't say many people, anyway, people that I know misuse the book. They think it's a magic pill to the discovering of emes. It's not a magic pill. It's a very sophisticated tool that has to be applied, and there is one of the mistakes is that people look at the physical words and they try to get all the information out of the physical words, and they don't understand that the physical words have to be interpreted. And that interpretation may be a machlokus rishonim, but the first step is to understand what the words mean clearly and make sure that ambivalent terms are not being used. Okay, that's the first step. So you have to get your nosei and the naso. What's the second step?
To Derech Tmunas, the third paragraph, talks about
100%. There's a lot of overlap here. Okay, a lot of overlap because we're talking about the same system, but here he's much more methodical in a certain way. Okay. Afterwards, after you know the nosei nasu, you have to talk about the kamas hagazera, which means imhu klali chelki oishi, right? Is the statement categorical? Is it a some statement partial, or is it talking about a specific? Okay. Again, clarify your terms. Don't make a individual term into a general rule. That's called the fallacy of the quick generalization. Okay. Sometimes, though, a particular case will represent the whole rule. Like we said, shore represents a whole rule or a whole set of things of kavan lahazik. How far and how narrow things go is Torah Shabbat Pedes, a debate going on about these things. Okay, so a lot of these things are much easier said than done, but at least he's presenting the tools that have to be used. We have to agree on what we're talking about, what we're saying about it, and we'll also have to agree if this is a general statement, or is it a particular statement, or is it really a statement that's meant in a certain aspect. Afterwards, number 3. Achar kach tabit el mahuso shel hagezera. What does he say mahus is? Whether it's a affirmative or denial statement. Dahainu imhu mechayeves o sholeves. Does it affirm something? Does it affirm that the subject has this predicate, or does it deny it? Imhu muchrach o efsha is a statement saying that this predicate has to be there, or only possibly, it has to be possibly there. Okay? So you have to define the relationship between the subject and the predicate. First of all, is it the gezerah, is it saying something is X or not X? And also, is it saying it vadai efsher suffik meniya? Okay? As we learned in the books before. Then, step 4, achar kach tisponen imhi emitis okuzevis. Now that you understand what you're talking about, you understand what mava is according to who you're talking about, right? And you know that it's a general rule. Now we have to prove it. How do you prove it? He's going to tell us how to prove it. Hainu. Im taos im klale asher takdimenu b'chafalef havchanos. Does it follow the rules of the 21 terms that I explained? Okay. O im tignaged lahem, or does it break one of the rules? Whether it were the rules of opposites, the rules of siba misubav. Okay. So you have to be logical to see if the statement is logical. Number 2. O im tivoled mehem behechrach. Is what's being said, is the result being said a mukhrach result? Does it have to be? Or is it just a possibility? Im tivoled mehem behechrach tiemitis mukhrachas. If the premises lead to the conclusions, so then, behechrach, there's no doubt about it. So then we'll say that the conclusion follows absolutely from the premises, and the statement is absolutely true. Im tisnaged tiye kozeves. If we see that the conclusions are against reality, so then we're going to have to back up and say, well, some of the premises are wrong. Im teos v'lo tuchrach ti'efshari. If they follow the rules but it's not mukhrach, that means the argument is only a possibility. Okay? And that's why the Gemara will say Dilma when it tries to say, that's very nice. It's very nice, your proof. It's based on your understanding of the statement, or the statement in the Mishnah, or a verse in the Torah, but maybe that verse or statement is talking about a certain circumstance. So that's the
So this is just talking about a regular
we're
statement.
looking for hechrach.
So this is just talking about a regular statement, and we're still talking about the result of the subject of imtivaled mehem. It's not. We're not talking about akeshim here, right?
No, we're talking about analyzing statements, but on gezeras. But gezeras are usually built on a keshim, you see.
So if you're going back to your simple statement, so you have to analyze whether it could be true or not. You don't have enough information just from that one statement.
Well, you have to understand that statement is the result of a pasuk, correct?
Right.
Kulam sadikim, it says. So now you have to see, does that result really follow from the pasuk? Is there another way to understand the pasuk? Maybe it's only a possibility of that's what it means. What he's looking for and what he's demanding and what we're all looking for is hechrach.
Right.
That means, does it have to say that? If it's just a possibility, so then we can't say it's true. We'll say it's a good possibility. But unless we say there's a Kabbalah that's what it means. Okay, that's another possibility. We say we have a Kabbalah. But normally what we want to do is to see the hechrach of the result, Kol Yisrael Chel Melech Haba, how that's coming from the statement itself. And it shouldn't be that there's other possibilities in the statement. If there are, then we have to eliminate them because the statement is only a dilma. This is the work of the Gemara, right?
Right.
And it's exactly what the Gemara does. The Gemara has a conclusion in the Mishnah. The Mishnah is a set of conclusions. And now it wants to reverse engineer, so to speak, and to look back at the source, which is how do you get from the Torah to that Mishnah. So then you have to have hechrach, okay? And then they'll argue, well, that's not hechrach, it is hechrach, and back and forth. That's basically, that's the analysis that goes on to determine whether a statement is true or not true. That's called havchana hagezeres. You go ahead.
So let's go back to read the way he explains that to know if it's true or not.
Okay, let's start from the beginning again, okay? Because again, these, we have to read it many times, okay? He's going to say, okay, that's fine. Havchanot hagezeres, let's start from the beginning. Havchanot hagezeres, which means the analysis of statements. Kol Yisrael, Yeshem Chelech Hamalaba. Okay? Lamitem or lahachisham. Now, we want to know whether a statement is true or false, right? There's two ways that we do it. Either we investigate the statement itself without anybody fighting us, or we have a debate about it. Those are the two ways. So now he's going to talk, what does it mean to analyze a statement and to see if it's true by itself? Forget about anyone arguing. So he says, Bifnei atzmohu, shenivchan hagezeres echas levadenu bli misnaged. First, what is it? It's the analysis of a statement without anyone fighting against us. Now, how do we do that analysis? Ad yedei havchanas hanosos. We analyze a statement and we say, okay, what is the proper way to analyze? He's going to show us. But first you have to know the subject, the predicate. You have to know the amounts of subject, predicate. You have to know is it shlili or kayem. Then you have to know the proof. So let's see what he says. But our aim is to analyze the statement. Perisho. Ad yedei havchanos hachaf aleph shezachanu lamala shemisham nosi kol hakeshim. Now look what he says. There's all the hakeshim come out of. Now, why is he talking about hakeshim, right? We're talking about havchanot hagezeros. You with me? I don't want to confuse the issue, but what I think what he wants to say is a statement can only be true if it's based on some evidence. So you're going to have to link the statement to the evidence. That's called a hekesh.
Right. So that, in other words, right. In other words, if you just say that it is daylight outside, so you have to stop and think, okay, where did it come from? What are we being makish to in order to be able to prove that it's true?
Right. It could be Neder Chad says the two Adim say like you could. So maybe it's the light, like with Kiddush Levana, right? You know what I mean? Maybe it's a light. Maybe it's not the moon. If it's in a cloudy day, you know what I mean? So how do you have to prove that it's the moon before you can say a bracha on it? You know, it has to be a clear day, not Baalil. So, but the point is like this. You're right. You have a statement and you have a proof. Those are the two basic things. In order to have a proof, you have to build a hekesh. Okay, that's how he's going to do the system. You have your statement. Your statement represents a result. Any statement in the Mishnah is a result. Okay? The result is what's called Mishneh, is second. It's second to the Torah, which is Rishon. Right. So you're going to have to makish. You're going to have to make a link between the statement that is stated to its source, and that's called a hekesh. Okay? And then you'll be able to know whether it's true or not. If the result follows from a source, it's true. If it doesn't follow from a source, it's not true. If we don't have a source, or we have two equal sources, then we'll say it's a suffix. Clear?
Yes.
Basically, what you're trying to do is you have a statement. You're trying to do a hekesh to find its proof. Okay. Right. So now he says, "V'hine shetitir salivchan hagezer echas." Now, how do you do this process? So first you have to understand what the statement means, and then you're going to have to now link it to its source, to its proof, correct?
Right.
So now, what does it mean to understand what the statement means? Well, first you have to analyze what is the subject, what is the predicate, is it a general, particular, or partial statement, and is it saying something is or isn't, right? And that's what he says here in these three rules, okay? So again, you have your statement. First thing you have to say, what are you talking about? If you don't know what you're talking about, we can't even begin to find out what the proof is, whether it's true or false. So he says, first look at the chalakim, the nosei, and the nasu. Okay, and make sure you got the right nosei and nasu, and you're not being led astray because of a homonym, right? That's the first thing. Afterwards, you better figure out, is it a general or particular statement or just a partial statement?
Right. That's a very important point about the homonym, because people could read it quickly and not really truly understand what the word that is being used and how it's being used, and then misinterpret the statement.
It says an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Right.
It says an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Right.
So not everything, we always start with what it says is what it means, but we're not fools. You know, we know that language has mashalim, and that's to explain the terms, right? There's the same term can be just a mashal, or it could be have two meanings, like to beat and to beat, right? To beat your drums, or to beat, or to beat someone in a race, okay? So that's very important. That's what he says. The first thing you have to do when you analyze a statement is, what does the statement say? What's the subject? What's the predicate? Is it a general or a particular statement, or a partial statement, right? And then you have to understand, is it establishing something, or is it denying something? Okay, is it a positive negazera, right? Okay, and is it saying that something, the predicate definitely is there, or just possibly there? You have to say, how strong is the connection between subject and predicate? Then, when you understand exactly what the statement means, right, then you're ready to sponen imhu amiti sakazevis. Now they understand what's being said. Now I can analyze whether it's true or not, correct?
Yeah.
These are very, it's beautiful, because what he's doing is very basic and primal and really necessary to have a very clear discussion, okay? So he says, the fourth step, now we have to prove it's true or not, right? So we say, im teosim klali asher tikdamna b'chafal havchanas o misagnet lahem. Well, did it follow rules? Is it a siba, masuba? We have to check it out. If this is a masuba, but this siba, so then, if the siba is not there, so the masuba should not be there, okay? If that's the only siba, maybe there's another siba. But we have to go through and say, well, what is the relationship of subject and predicate? If it's a siba, masuba relationship, it's a chalakim relationship, right? Say arba avas nazikin. Wait, that means there's 4 chalakim of the klal, right? We have the call and the chalak, right? The people say 26, 21. So wait, it doesn't seem to be this hard, but there's different numbers there. Okay, but that's the second step, is to see whether it follows the rules of 21, Siba, Masuba, etc. Okay?
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't. So now, if the consequent is mukhrach from the premises, so we say that the statement must be true, right?
Right.
If the consequences don't follow from the premises, so it's false. And if your statement is valid technically, the premise does conclude technically from the conclusion is technically a result of the premises, but those premises are not mukhrach, so then also your statement is not mukhrach. So again, if I have my statement and I want to link it up to the proof, I'm looking for a hechrach relationship between the result, the statement, whether let's say in the Mishnah, and its proof, which is, let's say, a source in the Chumash. Okay, so I better make sure that is mukhrach, and that's also a very interesting thing here, because some people would say, well, whatever it says, it says. But we don't. But he's not saying that, and those people who learn know that that's not true. Whatever it says is not always what it means, and there's a tremendous fight to determine exactly the definitions of what's being said. Okay, so that's the statement by itself, okay? You have to analyze the statement, and you want to analyze the statement and its proof. So the statement first has to be understood in and of itself, subjects and predicates, and etc., and then you have to see, does this statement follow from the premises? Okay. Now, the second way that we do analysis is with the vikuach, which a debate between different parties. Let's see how he defines that. He says some very, very basic things here which are very important to know. Bivikuach hu keshe te omarna shtei gezeros shonos o hefkios. When two statements are either different or opposite, v'naroch b'neihem milchama. So two people, again, vikuach hu keshet tomana, when two shtei gezeros, when two statements are said, and these two statements are either different or opposite, okay? Better and different and opposite. So then, naroch b'neihem milchama. Now we have a fight between two different opinions. It's not just one opinion we're trying to analyze what its source. We have now two opinions which are fighting each other. V'narach b'neihem milchama al yedei hekeishim sheyazru le'echas mehem o lechaverta. And now we have a milchama going on by way of setting up different hekeishim, which prove either one side or the other. V'yeh hishtadlus l'soter ha'hekeshim hamutas u'lahamid al amiti'im. And the whole the process here is to determine which are false and chances are true in order to see which results are true or false. We do him predicts. Rav says and now we have each one of them is now going to present the evidence why they're saying is correct, and, very importantly, why they say that their opponent is incorrect. And that's al yedei vikuchim. Now he says this battle of the statements, or battle of the opinions. The first one was just one statement. You're just trying to understand its source, whether it's true or not. But here we have a battle between two statements. That's what he says. This battle can be or it could be actually a physical debate between people. And that's why I said before, when someone says most imaginary debate. But if two people are arguing each other, so that's Rav and Shmuel, so that's a physical debate. There's really no difference because we're trying to get to the truth. So it's not like a person who debates two sides of an issue is just creating straw men and things like that. He's actually has very real problems that he's trying to analyze. So what we're trying to do is do a shikul. We're trying to balance the arguments each way and come to a result. So this is done. The first way, havikuach hamedumeh. Who sheish echad yes.
Go back for a moment because something which
please.
I think is interesting. He says, so until now we always use the keshim. That hakeshim will be the result of something which we already know as a fact, and then we're going to take that and use a keshim to be able to analyze it and create a Torah to create a result from it. So over here he's doing the reverse. He's saying that the hakeshim will help to prove or disprove one of the gzeros.
Yeah, because what happens, you have an opinion, right?
Right.
It depends which way you start. We usually start with an opinion, like let's say we start with a Mishnah, right? It says Maba. So now we have two opinions what Mava is. Correct?
Right. So you need
So
to prove. So you can make a hekesh or compare Mava to something else, which we already know is proved to be true, and then Mava is true. So it's really like a different way of using occasion than we've been discussing from it.
Right. We're not, and that's there's hamsa over havchana. There's the creative, the way to use a hekesh creatively. In other words, you want to create new results from existing information. Okay. If that's true, then we could say the following is true. But the other way is that we have positions that we want to analyze whether they're true or not. So now we have to go backwards from the statement, which is a result, and we have to look for sources to see if the statement is true. So it really is exactly, those are the two, that's the differences, that's the difference between hamsa and havchana. Okay? Here we're not trying to create new ideas. We're trying to determine whether these ideas are true or not. And the only way we can determine whether these ideas, which are results, are true, is to go back and look at the proofs, which is there, the statements that gave birth to them.
Right. Okay, it makes sense. Just
very good. Yeah. No, it's these things have to be, again, you have to spend time thinking about these things because they're very, very simple and they're very, very deep at the same time.
Right.
They're principles, they're foundations. And if you have these foundations correctly, so then you can learn properly and you can also teach properly.
Right.
Okay, very powerful tools. Okay, let's see what he says here. The v'kuach medameh, he said, is ish echad she'asa pulot hashnayim. He says is one person does two activities. What does that mean? Dahainu sheyigzog zeres be'emes. He says this. He says a statement. Va'achar kach yaksha aleha. Then he comes back, and he has all sorts of difficulties about the statement. Behekeshim yachzivuha, which will prove that these statements are false. Then he comes back and he knocks out all the occasion that he brought against the statement, and then v'yakaima gezerah v'yireh emita, and then he establishes the statement and shows that it's true. Okay, so remember, that's from the very twins is very important. We're not talking about creating straw men. I want to prove my statement is true, so I make a whole lot of weak arguments and I knock them out. Okay, we don't do such things. When a person makes a statement and he knocks out the other arguments because the other arguments are formidable, they're formidable possibilities, and he has to, in order to establish his position, he must eliminate that other position, or else his position is not mukhrach, or it's not true. Okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting though that he has to break this up between meduma and gufi. They're really the same thing. It's just a question if it's one individual or two individuals.
Right, but the reason why he has to say that because a lot of people think that meduma is less than gufi, right? Because when I give and take in a statement, so you'll think I'm only trying to, as they say in the slang, push a trip. I'm trying to, I'm trying to, pull the wool over your eyes, or by showing you that, this statement is true because I can knock out all the alternatives. So you might think that that's not what's happening, because as he says in Tunis, everyone's trying to find the truth. So it really doesn't matter if I take a position and I show you all the strengths and weaknesses, or an opponent actually holds that position. But it has to be said because you might fall into the mistaken idea that when two people are arguing, it's more emistic than when one person is arguing. It's not true.
As long as the person has intellectual honesty.
Oh, what magic words. Okay, those are magic words. So they're very important. That's yesod. I spoke to someone about evolution. I just like it because it's so intellectually false. Intellectually makes no sense, to hide and to say, after 50 billion, 100 billion years, the dice rolled 12 billion times correctly. Well, what's the proof? Because we're here. So it must have, and it took 50 billion years to do, and the Dyson hardly ever made a mistake, and we can't find mistakes all over the place. It's intellectually, that's what I don't like about it. I mean, I don't care if you don't mention Hashem, but that theory is weird. But okay, whatever it is, doesn't matter. But he's going to teach. He's going to talk all about these things. Anyway. So he says the bechur hagufi hu sheyeh ben shnei gufim mamash. So two people are actually arguing. Echad maniach. There's a person who sets up the premise or the argument. Ve'echad makshan, and there's an opponent which brings the hekashim against the maniach's position. Now, in a debate with two people, he says he's going to break it down, like he always does, which is gewaltig, into 4 basic principles. You have to know what's the no-say of the debate, what's the often, the manner of debating, what's the mitvachim, the people who are debating, and what's the tachlis. So we're going to go through these 4 parts. Let's see. What's the note say?
So these 4 parts, though, he's not relating back to the meduma, only to the gufi? Or
yes. Interesting. Because here he's talking about the debaters and the tachlis of the debaters. He's going to say some surprising things. We let him talk. So we said there's no difference, right? We said there's no difference in the debate. Well, as far as finding the truth, there's no difference, but there are these nuances when it comes to people arguing. Let's see what it is. Hanose hua inyan o agazera. First of all, the nose means what are we arguing about, or what statement are we arguing about? Okay, what concept are we arguing about? Tatagaber, whatever, or what statement in a Mishnah or a Gemara are we arguing about? So hanose hua inyan o agazera. Alav yisa'u v'yitnu hamakshav hameshiv. The no-say is a subject matter that the proponent and the opponent are speaking about. Now, he says like this. Hamasa umatan havikuchi ein rui shiyeh ela be'inyan she'amito bilti miforsemet. He says a vikuach, a debate about a statement or an idea, rule 1, it's not proper that you debate something unless the idea is not known. In other words, you don't debate things which are obviously true. Okay, they have to be built in miforsemes, which means that there has to be a doubt about them. Why? Kiba miforsemes eino ella miutar. Because if something is true, why debate it? Okay, it's a simple rule, but you have to know when people are arguing, and this is a very important thing. If they're arguing, it must be that there's a problem that it's not obvious what they're saying. If it was obvious, why are they wasting their time talking about it? Okay, so it's again, you're learning Gemara. You don't say, well, they just like to talk about things. They like to discuss things. They're not discussing things. They're discussing debatable issues whose truth is not clear, and therefore you have to bring evidence that it is correct or not correct. Okay. Number 2, it has to be be'inyan shiyaduo so efshariot. That's an interesting thing. You have to debate about something whose knowledge is possible to discover. Ki benimnei hahasaga hamasumat and batal miyutar ubilti ru'ui. If the concept that you're discussing cannot be understood, so then your whole debate is worthless and it's totally extraneous and it's not proper to discuss it. Okay, you can't discuss about life on Mars. I mean, you debate life on Mars, you have no concept of what that means. I'm just giving you an example. Okay, so when you debate something, the debate has to be because there's a possibility of determining the truth. If it's something that you can't determine the truth, what happened in 2,755 years ago in Manhattan, so there's no sense to talk about it. So it has to be something that's possible to be proven, or just say you don't know. Third, this is an interesting rule. A debate should have some sort of productive result, either to increase your wisdom or to increase your ability to do something. Because if not, it's just called wasted language.
Isn't that like a lot of Geisha philosophy? Isn't that just like they debate things just for the sake of debating them?
Yes. So this seems to be a very practical rule, but we've seen this also in the other good books that that we don't have just debates for debating's sake. There has to be some gain. We always say my nafkamina, right? You say, my nafkamina, very nice. You're making a distinction between the reason here and the reason there, but the distinction has to have a result. Very interesting. I can't exactly put my finger on why it has to have what's wrong with, having an intellectual debate about the cause of something, but for some reason he says it has to, the debate has to come out with a practical difference, a nafkamina in something. Well, he says the Sikha Batala. Well, I don't know why. Isn't there such thing as intellectual?
He's not coming from an intellectual point of view. He's probably coming from a Hashkafa point of view. That you shouldn't be talking about things that have no purpose.
Exactly. That's what he says. I agree.
Right. And we do this all the time, especially in today's day and age with telephones. Everybody's busy yapping away on the phones without any purpose.
Yeah, but that's even worse because there we're not even debating anything. We're just talking about the weather, and we're talking about what he said and what she said. And I mean, that's even worse than Sikha Batala. Here, at least, you're debating an issue, but since it has, he says it's Sikha Batala. But that's, I mean, this is a little more higher form of Sikha Batala. You know what I mean? What goes on usually on the telephone is
right.
It's just a reporting of information. Okay, that is what he calls the no-say. So the no-say, he says, the no-say has to be something whose truth is not obvious. That's rule number one. It has to be something whose truth can be discovered. That's rule number two. And it has to be something that will push forward in some wisdom or malacha. It can't just be something in the air. Okay. That's what he says, the no-say. Those are the rules of the proper no-say of a debate. Now, what about the often debate? Okay, the manner. So he says, rule number one, sheyeh hamasan matan borur bli ta'ut. When you debate an issue, the opponent and proponent have to be clear in their presentation and not make mistakes. Okay. V'sheyeh b'yishuv b'nachas. Wow, this one will blow out a lot of people. Debating should be settled and how do you say nachas? Peaceful.
Calm.
Okay.
Peaceful, yeah.
Calm. Yeah, calm. Bli b'halavakas. Without any excitement and anger, okay? So he wants to get rid of emotion here in the debating process.
I thought that was one of the mainstays of the base medrash.
You're right, but I think the difference there is, I'll tell you, these chidushim here. Okay, he's going to explain to us in Malitza that emotion is a very tricky business. Emotion perverts or distorts concepts. Okay, we're going to learn about that. Like if a person is angry, so then he's ready to Rahmanis kill someone, right? Now, 2 minutes when he's calmed down, he'll say that's ridiculous. But so emotion is a very when that enters into argumentation, you have to be careful. What we want in the base midrash is commitment to emes. That's a different story. Okay, there's a difference between being committed to finding the truth and that book called Striving for Truth, and then just being emotional at, you know, this is what I think, you know, and I believe, and you're crazy, and all these other things. Okay. Anyway, this is a big Kiddush. Yishuv ubenachas, he says. How that's going to impact on the base midrash. So I tried to make a distinction, because you can be committed and yet be benachas. But it's really a real. This is.
And you know, you could say no, or you could say no, or you could say no. You know, like and the person takes it three different meanings. One of them is, I said no, but he doesn't really mean it. The middle one, he said okay, he said it more emphatically, so he's more serious about it. And the last one is, there's no going, you know, there's no changing his mind. Right? So you say, you took the same word and you said it 3 different ways. I think when you're debating, you have to do it calmly so that the person hears the logical message and doesn't get the emotional message involved in it. Does that make sense? That's
golden. What can I tell you? These are what we call golden rules. Yes, we're trying to debate ideas, and emotion gets mixed up in that. Okay. All right. The third rule: Sheyeh b'derech katzara v'higionit. You should be to the point, short, and it should be logical.
That's
okay, so the first, yeah, it's another golden rule, right? Don't talk around the point. He's going to go through the whole thing. It's amazing what he says here. This is a very, we should hand it out as a leaflet. Okay, hine lo yisparsem hakozev. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? I'm sorry. I skipped the whole thing. Okay, let's go. That's the 3 rules. I'm sorry. Parasho. Now he's going to explain the rules. Yeah. Oh, he's going to explain. Ki em lo yisadru. Say you break the first rule, right? The first rule was what? That it should be barur without mistakes. So he says like this. Ki em lo yisadru hakushos v'terutzim b'derech higioni. Maybe it's the third one. Shibochenu hanos'im v'hanasuim hachiyuvim v'ashlilut v'shar kol tanayim hamamra hine lo yifarsem hakozev v'hataut v'lo yivada mekamo v'lo yimalet min haseichel bli shergish bo. Masha'en can read the whole thing. Masha'en ke bios kol gezeres nivchanim karui sha'az yigale miyad habilti naos asher lo yishmo chot ha'erech ha'ra'ui v'gezeres. Okay. I think it's on the last one, really, about being higioni. I think there's a parish on the third one, but we'll see in a second. He says like this. What does he say? If you don't organize the kashas and terutzim properly in a logical manner, so that the subjects and the predicates are clearly defined, and what you're saying is or isn't is also clearly defined, and all the other Tanaim statements. In other words, if your statements are not clearly expressed, what's going to happen? Hine. So then you'll never be able to expose any fallacies in the statement. And you won't understand where you're holding in the argument that was presented, let's say. And this, and what will happen? The errors will escape from the mind, bli shiagishbo, without you even thinking about it. Masha'en kain bios hagazeres nifchanim karui. This won't happen if the state. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, not gezerah, I'm sorry. This won't happen if all the rules are nivchan krui, are analyzed properly. What will happen then? Sha'az yigaleh miyad ha'bildi nos. If your statements are organized properly, so then immediately things that are not pleasant will be revealed. Asher lo yishmor chok ha'erech ha'ra'ui b'gezeros. They won't be following the rules that are proper when you're setting out your statements. V'ulam gam devorim, gam ribui devorim. But also you have to know that the first thing is he said, this is all a personal last thing I believe, that it has to be katsar and higyoni. If it's not katsar and higyoni, so then you can't discover what the mistakes are yourself, and your opponent also can't clearly understand what you're saying. This is really the debating process in the Gemara. If you analyze it with the visual logic, you'll see that that's what they're doing. Okay, but if you don't do this, so then you won't be able to recognize any mistakes in the argumentation, whether it be in your own or in the argumentation of others. V'ulam, but he says, so it should be katsar higyoni. V'ulam gam ribui hadagorim afilu shiyu higyonim magia haseichel v'al ebam v'lo yuchal lahavchin osam dipukam mitzarech. He says also, don't even saying too much, even if what you're saying is logical, also tires out the mind. I don't know what the lebam weakens it.
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. And you won't be able to determine the argument with the proper amount of exactitude. Why? Ki arbe masa'am Allah, because the heaviness, there'll be too many statements. V'lo ya'asor koach lahavdil v'neim. You won't hold up to see the differences between the statements. V'lo la'amod al prateim hadakim, and you won't be able to handle small details. V'nimsa mechayav mashu u'yilishlo o lahefech v'hu lo yada. And then therefore you'll affirm something of something that shouldn't be affirmed, or you'll deny something of something that should have been denied, and you won't chop it. So what's he saying here? He's warning you that even if you talk too much, that also will prevent a clear understanding of your argument, because there's too many details. You'll like lose people in all the details. Okay.
Happens all the time.
Yeah, exactly. These are primary things, but people never wrote it down in a book. Okay, and that's what he did. So I think we should stop here. Okay, right. And then we'll do the rest of this. This is very, very primal and basic. That's why these books are really books that really should be studied and taught. People are not used to. People are used to real-time learning, but a lot of things in non-conscious learning and real-time learning get miss the totality of the emes, and a lot of time, unfortunately, is wasted on simple rules. If we had the simple rules in front of us, then we could go further much quickly and much clearer, much faster. That's why I wrote the book.
Right.
Okay. You have. Okay.